I feel like in the research that I have done and in the doctors that I have spoken to personally, I believe in vaccination.
Kristen Bell made headlines when she admitted she wouldn't let her friends hold her and husband Dax Shepard's 2-month-old baby unless they'd had their vaccinations.
Oh, I like money. Yeah, I like money, though. I like money. Can't believe you like money, too. We could hang out, because I like money.
We are this close to making history, this close to changing the world. We're this close to ending polio, to making sure no child suffers from this crippling disease ever again. All we need is you.
but there's a small but still sizable group of people who are choosing not to vaccinate their children. Here in LA, there are schools in which 20% of the students aren't vaccinated because parents here are more scared of gluten than they are of smallpox. I want to say something about that. I know if you're one of these anti-vaccine people, you probably aren't going to take medical advice from a talk show host, and I don't expect you to. I wouldn't either. But I would expect you to take medical advice from almost every doctor in the world. See, the thing about doctors is they didn't learn about the human body from their friend's Facebook page. They went to medical school where they studied all sorts of amazing things, like how to magically prevent children from contracting horrible diseases by giving them a little shot. You know those little shots of Botox? Which is botulism, by the way. You get in your face to make your head look smooth and your eyes look crazy? A little shot like that and poof, polio is gone. But some people do not buy into that because they did a Google search and Jenny McCarthy popped up and she had clothes on, so they listened to what she had to say and decided not to vaccinate their kids. Now, and by the way,
Jim Carrey is really upset with California Governor Jerry Brown for signing a new vaccination law this week. The rule makes vaccines mandatory for all school children, regardless of their religious and personal beliefs. Carrey went off on Twitter and called Governor Brown a corporate fascist who must be stopped. See, Carrey once had a long-time relationship with Jenny McCarthy, whose son has autism, which McCarthy believes was caused by vaccines. Carrey believes that vaccines contain harmful chemicals and compounds, including mercury and thimerosal. By getting vaccinated, he claims children become at risk for mercury poisoning. Carrey also called the U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention corrupt for not being able to solve a problem they supposedly helped start. He'd rather vaccines be free of chemicals, and as he puts it, just take the neurotoxins out of the vaccines.
yes. Now, and by the way, I want to say, this would all be okay if your kids were the only ones affected. They're your kids, but they're not, because unvaccinated kids put all children in danger, especially babies who are too young to get the vaccination shot. But of course, that's according to doctors, so, you know, take that with a grain of salt.
We're in Central Appalachia, the epicenter of the opioid crisis. This is ground zero. This is perfect storm of economic problems, significant number of doctors located in one particular place whose practices are suffering because population decline.
In North Carolina, last year, there were 10 million prescriptions for opioids written. That's one for every man, woman, and child in the state of North Carolina. They get hooked, they can't get any more of those pills, so they go on the street. They get heroin, which is cheaper and more plentiful.
The power of the narcotic over the person is unbelievable. We're seeing overdoses from the age of 17 to 70 with heroin and heroin derivatives in this community.
Thanks for joining us for this special report, A State of Crisis, South Carolina's opioid epidemic. I'm Caitlin Stansel. Tonight we look at the role doctors have played in creating the problem and the role they have in its solution.
Good morning. Deaths from opioid overdoses have more than quadrupled since 1999, and that's made ambulances like this one very, very busy. Some of the most severe devastation has been right here in Kentucky, and paramedics who used to go days without a single overdose are now lucky if they go just a few hours.
Yes. Tennessee is one of the top-ranked states for opioid abuse and addiction. Physicians and policymakers agree something needs to be done. But as News Channel 5's Jonquil Newland tells us, we're a long way from winning the fight.
First ever opioids State of the State today. Experts talked about how Mississippi is tackling opioid abuse and what still needs to be done to fix the problems. The director
just 2 years ago, the CDC ranked Alabama highest in the nation for opioid prescriptions, with more prescriptions than people in the state.
Georgia's opioid crisis is getting worse. That's the report today from Fulton County District Attorney Paul Howard.
On the steps of the Capitol today, the director of the Association of Cities and Counties said that drug companies helped create the opioid crisis in Arkansas, and today he said those companies should pay to help fix it.
We have the second highest opioid prescription rate in the country, behind Alabama.
The lawsuit
The state of Florida is now suing two of the largest pharmacy chains in the country over their distribution of opioids. Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi has added CVS and Walgreens as defendants to a complaint first filed in May against companies that make and distribute opioids. The amended lawsuit alleges the defendants, which also include Purdue Pharma, the maker of OxyContin, engaged in deceptive marketing practices and helped to fuel the national opioid epidemic.
Now, some people are saying kids who aren't vaccinated shouldn't be allowed to go to school or daycare or go to public places, but here's where I think it should go. If you are one of those people who knows more than doctors, that's fine, no vaccinations, but you're not allowed to go to the doctor anymore. Okay? Why would you even want to go to a doctor who knows less than you do? So, if you fall and you cut your head open, you will not be admitted to the emergency room. Stay at home, find that sewing kit you stole from the Marriott, and stitch it up yourself, Doc. The doctor will see you never. Oh, by the way, you should also let your kids smoke. Why wouldn't you? The only people who say not to are doctors, and they don't know. So I feel like...
What cigarette do you smoke? You'll be interested to know how the doctors of America answered that question. Tens of thousands of doctors in all parts of the country, in every state of the union. Doctors in every branch of medicine were asked, "What cigarette do you smoke, doctor?" In this nationwide survey of general practitioners, surgeons, throat specialists, diagnosticians, and so on, the brand named most was Camel.
Yes, according to this survey, more doctors smoke Camels than any other cigarette. Try Camels yourself. Make the one sensible cigarette test. Make your own 30-day Camel mildness test in your T-zone. Smoke only Camels for 30 days. Enjoy Camel's rich, full flavor. And see how well Camels agree with your throat. Pack after pack, week after week. See for yourself why Camels are so popular with the doctors of America.
Is that a gang sign? Have you,
Oh, like you don't know what it is. You don't know what that is.
I have no idea.
You don't know. Jimmy Fallon doesn't know. David Letterman doesn't know.
We don't know.
All the comics and show business don't know what this is. Right? Yeah.
What is it?
Come on, Jimmy. Seriously, the time is up. People are hip to this kind of stuff. I'm here tonight to blow the lid off it, to be the whistleblower. I'm sick and tired of the secrets and the lies. It is the secret symbol of the Illuminati, and you're a part of it, and it is the all-mocking tongue.
Oh. I like it.
A few moments later.
what I mean? Like, for years now, talk show hosts, people on television, people in sitcoms have been hired by the government to throw you off the track, to distract you, to make you laugh and stuff like that, make you happy and docile so you don't know what's really going on. You know, and they get out there in the woods in a circle naked and they decide these things and, you know, and look at him trying to come it up. It's hilarious, hilarious. And, you know, and I'm sick of, hold on a second. You know what they're trying to do? Who? This thing is buzzing. Hold on. They're trying to turn us into, you know, consumer drones of some sort. I just got to get this. Yeah, listen, I'm in the middle of blowing the lid off some...
What happened?
I'm sorry, Jimmy. I was temporarily interrupted by my iPhone 6 Plus. 5.5.
That's a big one, huh?
5.5 heads-up HD display. I think what I was really trying to say is I think people really enjoyed Dumb and Dumber this weekend.
And that is what I thought you were
about to say. They should all go to the theater. They should all go to the theater tomorrow and see it. Because we could use a good laugh. Ha, 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 ha.
I will listen. I will smile. I will nod. If you do it during the show, you're going to be arrested. It's all bad, okay? We don't want that to happen. So right now I want to give you a chance, if that's what you came here for, to go ahead and do that. If you didn't, then we can just let it go. Does anybody, like, for real, does anybody want to... So we're good, right? We can just have fun? Is that cool?
You didn't even mention that.
All right, yeah, perfect. So now, serious stuff out of the way. Let's have a good time.
Figured out because that traditionally you get one or two celebrities who you know, somebody you have a personal connection with, to present you with the star.
They told us to pick two, and I Stop discrimination against vaccine injured children, Christian.
Well, we're talking about the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, but we need to talk about that.
Yeah.
Let's have a discussion. I know the exhibit. Don't touch me about the phone. Call me. We'll talk.
We started walking out right away. We both decided we were going to walk out right away.
Yeah. So you guys like went to run out after you did it?
We went to immediately. We didn't want to get
was escorted. We wanted to say our piece and get the F out. We were like, we're not going to even be shamed and have them escort us. So we just said it and then we bail. And there's 4 guys chasing us. Big don't let him out, don't let him out. And I go, so we're running. She's kind of trailing, but we're running. Oh, take my hand, take my hand. And it wasn't until we like go around the corner that we just, there's a long hallway to the exit where there's those big metal doors. So he blocked me, but he's, like I said, it was double doors with push, the long bar. He's blocking the one, and I'm looking at the other like, why aren't you blocking that door? Is that one locked? I'm gonna go for it. So I like roll over and knock that one, it opens. I'm like, we're out. Come on, come on, I'm pulling her. And they separate us. They like 3 guys on her and 3 guys on me.
Come up, let's go.
Don't hook me up. You're not the police.
You're going to jail. You're going to jail.
Get your hands up. Help me. Get your hands up. You're assaulting me.
Let's go. Turn around, put your hands behind your back.
You're not a cop.
You're under arrest.
You're not.
You interfered with a shit.
Ow, 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 ow. They take Julie's head and they slam it. And then all of a sudden he f***ing planted my face in the f***ing bricks.
He pushed your face into bricks.
In the bricks. Ow, ow, ow. This was like complete violation.
Yes.
Like it was grabbing boobs. It was like just complete chaos.
Put your hand behind your back. Do it.
No. Oh, stop.
Give me the other one.
Oh, sit down, just stop.
There's no sitting down. You're going to jail.
I'm trying to just be calm because they say they're going to arrest us and they're taking us to jail. But Julie's like, for what? For what? Trespassing? No, we had tickets to be in there. And she's like, what's the code? And then the guy that was twisting my arm, harassing me, I said, you're not even a cop. I said, and he said, how do you know if I'm a cop? I said, where's your badge? And he's like, what, are you a lawyer?
There is no assault.
You're assaulting me right now. You're not an officer.
Yes, I am.
No, you're not.
I'm making an arrest.
You're not an officer.
Making an arrest.
Am I right?
My butt?
He wasn't a cop, and he completely assaulted me and Julie. Like, just literally, I've never been, like, so scared physically of a man. And by the time it stopped, this was completely, I'm wearing a tank top. This was off like this. And
Right.
Embarrassing.
Right.
The security guys, like, literally, my jacket, like, my boobs, like, it was just crazy. Like, it was legit crazy. So when the police officer came, they put this back on me. They'll sit down, it's okay. And I told him, man, are you okay? You know, I'm okay. They're good. Officer Huang's gonna talk us through. He's gonna walk us through. We're not gonna get assaulted anymore. He goes, no, you're not gonna be assaulted anymore. And like I said, he put my clothes back on me. It was Josh.
Yeah. This is the kind of desperation we've been driven to.
That's exactly what Julie said. She's like, nobody will talk about this. We have to do this.
Yep.
This is our only chance to do this.
That's right.
If he would have a real conversation, we wouldn't feel desperate to come and do this because he's putting a target on us and our kids.
That's right.
I just think that more people need to be doing this, and they need to be getting your signs and doing like views for vaccine, like just everywhere. And because like this cannot happen, and we need to have more people. We need the support, and the people behind their computers preaching to the choir need to get out and get on the streets and back us up.
A lot of people ask me, Tex, is there proof that there exists this secret elite, this Masonic influence in the world today? I'm convinced there is, and they themselves admit this in many of their most august writings. For example, Manly P. Hall, who was called by the Scottish Rite, that is the largest distribution magazine in the Freemasonry world. Manly P. Hall died a few years ago, but he wrote many books, and he was called in the Scottish Rite Journal, was called the greatest Masonic scholar of the 20th century. Let me tell you what he wrote in one of his books. He talked about the Hegelian dialectic process, which is he called the universal motion. And basically he talked about the fact that the whole world is being psychically driven to its destiny. But listen what he says about the elite, the Illuminati, the high-level Masons, even beyond, you might say, the 33rd degree. He says there exists in the world today, and has existed for thousands of years, a body of enlightened humans united
in what might be termed an order of the quest. Mr. Hall said it is composed of those whose intellectual and spiritual perceptions have revealed to them that civilization has a secret destiny. Manly P. Hall, of course, would know these things because, as I said, he was called the greatest Masonic scholar of the 20th century and was a 33-degree Mason. One of the classic books he wrote is entitled The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Many people wonder aloud today, Freemasonry, is it Jewish? Can we say that it is comprised almost virtually of Jews? Well, one thing is for sure, it is controlled, I believe, behind the scenes by high-level Jewish interest. You know, many, many years ago, from Chicago, Illinois, was a publication that came out called Women's Voice. And back in 1953, they had a feature article called the B'nai B'rith's Clause. Now, the B'nai B'rith is a Jewish Masonic lodge headquartered out of New York City, but with worldwide influence. In fact, even the Pope of Rome invited the B'nai B'rith members to the Vatican and met with them, and I have a picture of that. But notice also this headline in Women's Voice. It says, Freemasonry is jewelry. In other words, if you're a Freemason, you're likely to be a Jew. I've noticed as I've gone around the United States and visited many Masonic lodges and, of course, the House of the Temple of Washington, D.C., I've noticed that the prominence and the predominance of the Jewish six-pointed star, the Star of David that you see on the flag of Israel, it seems to be everywhere in Masonic lodges, and there's a reason for that. Here's an article from the CDL report some years ago. It said, Freemasonry is Jewish, say the Jews. So we're not talking about, defaming or slandering Jews. They say that this is true. In the book Anti-Semitism by Bernard Lazare, he says there were Kabbalistic Jews around the cradle of Freemasonry, as certain rites still in existence prove conclusively. They were at the very cradle, at the origins, at the beginning of Freemasonry. Now, Rabbi Isaac Wise, way back in 1855, had this to say. He stated, Freemasonry is a Jewish establishment whose history, grades, official appointments, passwords, and explanations are Jewish from beginning to end. Brother, so-called Masonic brother Rudolf Klein of the Grand Lodge of Saxony in Germany was asked about the Jewish rituals that are conducted in Masonic lodges, and he said Jewish ritual is customary and valid in all Freemasonic lodges of the world. In the Jewish Tribune newspaper way back in 1927 in the United States, we read, Freemasonry is based on Judaism. Eliminate the teachings of Judaism from the Masonic ritual, and what is left? In a French publication in 1928 called Le Symbolisme, it says the important duty of a Freemason must be to glorify the Jewish race. So over and over again we see that Judaism is Freemasonry. And this is very fascinating, is it not? Now, we go on to look at some other aspects of this. For example, in the New Age movement, it seems that the New Age movement's leaders also know about the Masonic context of Freemasonry. This is an excerpt from the book The Rays and the Initiations by Alice Bailey. Now, she's the founder of Lucis Trust, which is a combination name, by the way, of Lucifer and Isis. Lucis Trust. And her book, entitled The Rays and the Initiation, way back in 1960, one of the major New Age texts available at all New Age and occult bookstores, she on page 418, she states that the time has now come in preparation for the New Age for certain changes to be worked by Masons with spiritual understanding. She mentions the present Jewish color of Freemasonry. She says the Blue Lodge degrees, that's the first 3 degrees of Freemasonry, are entirely Jewish in phrasing and wording. She says even the higher degrees are permeated with Jewish names and words. Now, Alice Bailey, like her mentor, Helena Blavatsky, who wrote The Secret Doctrine and founded the Theosophy Society, was a co-Mason, a woman Mason. Now, this is from a book sent to me from Greece, and some of the Christians over in Greece have been exposing this. I'm sorry you can't read the Greek title of this book, but inside it was a chart from the United States, and I think this is most fascinating. If you'll look at this very carefully, this is from a jewelry store in New York City. Now, it's Kirschenbaum and Son Wholesaler Jewelries on 78 Canal Street, New York to New York. This is probably about 30 years old. It says that this is a chart of the most important Masonic emblems. And from on the right-hand side, beginning after the Blue Lodge with the 4th degree, Secret Master, going all the way up to the 32nd degree, they have the list of names of the various Masonic degrees, the rituals and the degree that you are awarded if you pass the initiation exercise, drama, and test for that degree. And it shows very clearly, for example, that most of the names have a Jewish influence. There is the Knight of the Brazen Serpent, the Prince of the Tabernacle, Chief of the Tabernacle. There's the Prince of Jerusalem. I mean, how more direct can you be? If you've got the if you've worked up to the 16th degree in Freemasonry, you'll be awarded the Prince of Jerusalem title. And there's a number of others to boot. The Knight Kadosh, number 30, the 30th degree, is also Masonic. Some years ago, as I began to look at Freemasonry and its relationship to Israel, in fact, the control of Israel by Masons, let me repeat that. Today, Israel, the nation of Israel, and the higher level Jewish positions in banking, finance, the media, the corporate world in the United States and Europe, and let me go on and include South America, Asia, and other continents in that as well. The higher level positions are all held by Masons, Freemasons. So the Masonic Lodge and Judaism or Jewry are deeply connected. Now, in a magazine called Inside Israel, the August 1996 edition, now this is an Israeli source, a Jewish source, it gave this fact, and by the way, this was also reported in Mahariv, the daily newspaper in Tel Aviv, and by other Jewish sources in the nation of Israel. Let me just read a little bit to you here. It says, on May 3rd, 1996, Tel Aviv police raided an apartment, joined by reporters from the state-run television news program and the daily newspaper Devar Rishon. They found a bizarre scene. The walls were covered in Latin script. Skulls and bones graced the shelves. Swords were crossed and mounted around an altar. 5 doors led to secret passageways with red blinking intruder warning lights. The news report the next day announced, quote, the apartments were used for ceremonies by the Freemasons, an organization whose membership, now we're talking about Israeli membership, Jewish membership, whose membership boasts cabinet ministers and high-ranking army officers. Fascinating. Goes on to say that in spring of 1994, 2 other Israeli publications, Yediat Aronot and the Shishi, published long articles about Freemasonry in Israeli society. Both newspaper reports agreed that Prime Minister, that is the late Prime Minister, Yitzhak Rabin, had been a Mason since the 1960s, and that in 1976, Rabin presided over a large Masonic convention in Jerusalem. Benjamin Netanyahu, the prime minister, was also said to be a Mason. He was recruited when he was Israel's ambassador to the United Nations in New York City in the 1980s. Both newspapers observed that King Hussein, now he's a Muslim, isn't he? Yes, he is. He's an Arab. But King Hussein of Jordan had been a high-ranking and proud Mason who often traveled to London, England to participate in secret Masonic ceremonies. Quite fascinating, isn't it? They go,
tell the story about how you tried to find out what they call the Mossad when they deal with publicly?
I thought it was a reasonable question, but the trouble is you can't pick up the phone book. There's no Langley in Israel that you can look up, CIA, or in our case, the Mossad. We thought we should ask, what shall we call it in English? You can translate the Hebrew words, as I said, Mossad is institute, but when they write a letter to their friends in the CIA or the British intelligence, what do they call themselves? It took a while. It was a matter of asking the Prime Minister's spokesman. The best you could do, because officially the Mossad is under the Prime Minister's office. And I think he sort of wondered why you want to know and all that, so we explained. And he came up with the Israeli Secret Intelligence Service. And if it were to have initials, it would be ISIS. Just simple words like that. Interestingly enough, kind of a British model. The British don't really like the names MI5 and MI6 for their foreign service. They prefer SIS, Secret Intelligence Service.
Let's go back to the beginning and get the basics on the table. How many people in Israel are involved in intelligence activities?
Well, it's a state secret. Nobody would tell you exactly. But we believe that there are more than 10,000 people involved directly, employed directly by the various branches of the Israeli intelligence, mainly the military intelligence. One has to remember that the military intelligence, Amman, is the largest and the most important intelligence organization in Israel, and before the Mossad.
Oh, well, the 1980s is really the troubled period. Not trying to dwell on them, but finding an important pattern that occurred as political control became less effective. A nuclear worker, Mordechai Vanunu, worked in the Dimona nuclear reactor, went abroad, sold many of the nuclear secrets, and the domestic security people, Shin Bet, that's the equivalent of the FBI, shouldn't have let him leave the country with his photographs of the reactor. In the end, by the way, the Mossad had to save the day, sent a female agent, if this sounds familiar now, to London, lured him, another honey trap. Vanunu was lured abroad to Italy and kidnapped, chained by the Mossad and brought to Israel. It was a bad period, the 80s. And I even left one out, Jonathan Pollard, here in Washington, the American civilian analyst at the Navy who was caught spying for the Israelis. And that's been terrible embarrassment, largely because he was an American Jew. And we say in the book that the Mossad should have learned ages ago not to hire Jews to do that.
Here's a book sent to me by Barry Kamish called Traitors and Carpetbaggers in the Promised Land, a journal of Israel's betrayal. Mr. Kamish is a very fascinating writer. He talks in here about the Kissinger connection, the CFR connection. The Clinton connection, and the Vatican connection. The Mormon connection. The Rabin assassination connection, and there is a chapter in here about the Masons who appear to be in control of the nation of Israel. Then we go on a little further to document the influence of Freemasonry in Israel. In October 1993, in the La Repubblica, that's an Italian newspaper, one of the most respected daily newspapers in Italy, La Repubblica, October 1993, was an article entitled Israel, the Pact Between Politicians and Masons. Fascinating, isn't it? It reported on a gala 40th anniversary celebration in Jerusalem of the founding of the Great Lodge of the State of Israel of ancient and accepted Freemasons. It says the ceremony was attended by the mayor of Jerusalem, Teddy Kollek, as well as the chief rabbi, Israel Meir Lau. The chief rabbi of Israel, Meir Lau. Now, here's what the mayor of Jerusalem now told the gathering of Masons. He said, quote, "You do a great honor to Jerusalem. This is natural," said Mayor Kollek, "considering that King Solomon was the great builder of the temple, which is at the roots of the Masonic idea, and that his workmen were the first Masons." Well, the rabbi now, for his own part, when he got up to speak to this big gala meeting of Masons, Jews came from all over the world to it, Rabbi Lau, now remember he's the chief Jewish rabbi for the whole nation of Israel, he stated this, he said, quote, "The principles of Freemasonry are all contained in the book of books of the Jewish people. It was noted that there were 4,000 Israeli Freemasons, and they were divided into 76 different lodges." I went on the internet and researched this subject. I found, for example, that there is even in Jerusalem a Grand Lodge of Jerusalem. Now, this is also fascinating because I went back and I did a lot of research into all of my Masonic references. Here, for example, is volume 2 of the Encyclopedia of Freemasonry. Notice on the spine here, it's by Albert Mikey, 33rd degree, and Charles McClanahan, 33rd degree. Okay? Now, in this tremendous resource, and I can't even tell you how many pages it is, but it goes to about 1,000 pages, and notice it's got gold, gilt edging around it. But I found some very interesting information. For example, on page 753, there is a very interesting illustration, piece of artwork of the Masonic Lodge of Jerusalem. They use the name Palestine because, of course, before Israel was founded in the 1947-48 era by the United Nations, that area of the world, Israel, was called, in fact, Palestine. And now today, of course, Palestine, we think of the Palestinian region that's controlled by Yasser Arafat and the PLO. But in fact, that was called Palestine. And this particular piece of art says, this is called the Foundation of the Royal Order of the Freemasons in Palestine. And it's dated AM 4037. Now, AM 4037, you see, the Masons have a different, they refuse to accept the chronological system that goes all the way, the AD that we use, because AD means Anno Domini, or after Christ. So they use their own system, the year of light. This means that this picture of this lodge of the Freemasons in the country of Palestine can be dated back 1,700 years. 1,700 years. Now, we're going to reveal a few secrets to you here about the Masons and the Jews. I'm going to show you a couple pictures of Jewish Masons who set tremendous, well, let's just say they set records for bloodshed and bloodthirstiness Here is a gentleman, for example. I hesitate to call him a gentleman. His name, Karl Marx. Karl Marx. He's called the father of communism, of course. Lenin, Trotsky, Stalin, and the others took his ideas and, you might say, ran with them. Now notice as you look again at the body of Karl Marx, notice that his hand inside his jacket in a very strange position. Of course, that is a Masonic hand sign. That is a Masonic hand sign. He then was a Mason. And by the way, my research shows that he also was a high priest of the Church of Satan. Not the one founded by Anton LaVey in 1966 in California, but the long-standing Church of Satan. He was indeed a satanic priest. He was with a group called the League of Just Men, and he worked very close with a Jewish Zionist. He believed in a new world order for Zionism. He was a Jew. But of course, he was also a Jew, interestingly enough, who hated God. Now, we also have a picture of another, let's just call him, let me clear my throat when I call him that, another gentleman. Here is Vladimir Lenin. Lenin was also, it is now admitted, after the fall of the USSR and the breakup of all their republics under Mikhail Gorbachev, more recently in Boris Yeltsin, it's now admitted that this man, Vladimir Lenin, who founded communism within the USSR, he, Trotsky, Stalin, and others, that he was indeed a Jew. And he was married to a Jew, Miss Krupskaya. So Lenin was 100% a Jew. His mother was a Jew. This was a secret that the Russians kept from the people until just recently, and now the history books are now recording that he was Jewish, as was the number 2 man of the Soviet Communist Revolution, the Bolsheviks, that was Trotsky. He also was Jew. In fact, of the 5 founders, Stalin was not one of the 5 founders, but of the 5 founders of communism, the top 5 founders of communism in Russia, all 5 were indeed Jews, and all 5 were Freemasons.